All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people, based on the algorithm, maybe five, just like you, just like me. Oh, the algorithm. My friend, the algorithm. The algorithm and I have a very touchy relationship right now, so pray for me and the algorithm together, okay? Anyway, Lone Rider, this is Sundown. This came out last year. It's spectacular. Um, I've got patrons who were really getting into this last year, so you got to check it out. In the Spirit of Bad Company, with the legendary Simon Kirke playing drums, and you've also got Steve Overland, who's a legendary singer. Really great songwriting. These guys know how to make music that sounds like vintage Bad Company, and you're saying, well, that's kind of derivative. And I'm like, yeah, so what? that's my response. Courtesy of Escape Music. Good stuff. Escape, they put out a lot of great music, and you got to go looking for it. But once you find it, you're like, yeah, this is good. You know what else is good? Apparently, is the new album by Graham Nash. It's called Now, and Graham Nash is in the news again because he's lamenting how he didn't let David Crosby apologize to him before he passed away. This is just a weird article. There's some weird stuff in this article. This is what they call death regret. Oh man, I should have said this. I wish I could have patched this up. Now, this all stems from the fact that David Crosby did not like Neil Young's girlfriend, Daryl Hannah. Yeah, Daryl Hannah from Splash. That's Neil Young's girlfriend. Unless they got married. I don't know if they got married, but it's either wife or girlfriend. You know, it's the free love generation, so it's probably just his girlfriend. This is what people do from the 60s, right? Hey, you want to shack up for a while? Sure. All right, so I'm losing my train of thought. Anyway, it appears that toward the end of Dave's life, talking about David Crosby, but every so often I will call him Dave. Apparently, they were scheduled to do a FaceTime call, Graham Nash and David Crosby. And I'm not sure what they were going to talk about. Maybe that was going to be the apology, or maybe that was going to be Graham Nash asking for the apology. Go ahead, Dave, you can apologize now. Go ahead. And, you know, look, David Crosby, I think he went on with Howard Stern and he said he was sorry. And he said it a few times, I think, on Twitter. And I think it ended up not being enough because maybe they didn't think he was sincere about it. One of the things I liked about David Crosby was that he would shoot his mouth off. And it was funny to listen to. It was interesting. When Eddie Van Halen passed away, he was like, I don't know if he's any good. He's not as good as Jimi Hendrix. And then he had to kind of backpedal and say, yeah, Eddie's good. But, you know, I grew up with Jimi Hendrix, you know, and which is kind of a good save. It was a pretty good save. But the internet was like buzzing around because it appeared that David Crosby had no idea who Eddie Van Halen was, which, you know, a lot of drugs, folks. This is what happens, alcohol, drugs. And I'm pretty sure that David gave it all up. Otherwise, he wouldn't have lived as long as he did. You know, I think it was Graham Nash who said, we weren't expecting Dave to make it as long as he did. We thought he would have expired like 20 years ago. So again, David Crosby, he had 9 lives and he was on number 9. You know what is really interesting, though, about this article? It says here, after Crosby's sudden passing due to COVID-19 complications, Nash, and I'm going to comment, don't worry, Nash could only be comforted that the two had been close. They were trying to patch things up and had a FaceTime call scheduled the day of David's passing. So supposedly they were going to do a FaceTime call, but David checked out prior to the call. Now it says here, I have to go back to this, Crosby's sudden passing due to COVID-19 complications. Interesting. All right. So I'm thinking Dave had a few comorbidities. Just a few. And the other thing I would note here is I'm sure David made multiple trips to CVS, or he had people that were in his orbit go to the drugstore and bring him what he needed. Although apparently someone is supposed to, administer this wonderful Fauci love juice that saved millions of people from an early demise. But my point is, I don't know if you can blame. Why should you be blaming the thing here when Dave did everything that he was supposed to do? This shows up in an article. Yes. And did David go and do what everybody was telling everybody to do at that time? Did he do it multiple times? Maybe he didn't. Maybe he was being David Crosby and just skipped the whole thing. But from some pretty good sources that I have, yeah, I mean, all of these guys were yelling and screaming when this was at the height of its hysteria, saying, go to the drugstore, do it now, do it for the good of your neighbor. And it's like, yeah, I don't really talk to that guy across the street. And when I go outside, I like to breathe fresh air. I don't like to wear something over my face. But okay, sure, I'll do it, because you guys, wow, all of a sudden I'm feeling a lot like a zombie. I'm just kind of, my eyes are just, this is what happened. And what's crazy is this is all going to go down the memory hole. This is just going to be forgotten about. People are going to be like, no, it wasn't so bad. They didn't want you to do that. You're making this stuff up. Save the documents, okay? Save the video clips. Save whatever you have. You've got articles. You better download them and save them, because someday they're going to be really hard to find. Unless, of course, they do this again, and then they use all of this stuff that they used before, and they keep it out there just to keep the fear going, which, is a really strong possibility. But it's very interesting here how the article blames, one thing for David's problems and ignores all the other things, especially the thing that he went and did, because it's highly likely that he did, and he did it probably multiple times. I know. I'm just a giant conspiracy theorist, right? It's just, I don't really care anymore. I don't really care. If this is over, right? If this is over, why did the guy from White Lion have all these problems if this was so wonderful? I mean, he said he did it 4 times. And someone said, maybe that's the cause of all of his current problems, right? Just kind of a logical connection between what's happening there. And yeah, but anyway, folks, the apology that apparently Graham Nash wanted may have been stopped that day. It appeared that David and Graham were supposed to have some FaceTime, according to what Graham Nash is saying. Either that or everybody's trying to look less like a louse. Okay, louse, where did that come from? Because he did apologize, but it wasn't really enough for those guys. But they were reconciling for sure, because apparently David was speaking to Neil Young, but it didn't go any further than that. Here's the thing about David Crosby. I think David Crosby thought he was going to be here for a lot longer because he was planning a tour. And, again, this is a sudden, what? It just happened suddenly. And nobody wants to admit it. They just want to move on and say, well, these were just complications. Well, they were pretty harsh and quick and effective complications. All right. It just, a lot of this to me, when you start to think it through and talk it out, it just doesn't make any sense. And people don't seem to care that it doesn't make any sense. That's what's frustrating about the world right now. There are people that don't care. And even if you call them out on the fact that their point of view doesn't make any sense, they look at you again with their eyes glazed over, and they go outside and they wear their protective covering and they wrap it around their head because it's dangerous out there. It's dangerous because that's what they were told. They were told, wherever you go, bring your binky with you, and use it as much as you can because that's going to be, and they've done studies. They've done studies, folks. It didn't do anything. In fact, in some cases, it made other things happen that weren't going to happen if you weren't using this particular product, which I believe has little micro particles. I know we talk a lot about particles, or I used to talk about the floating particle, but these are different floating particles. The plastics that are in all the water bottles and you drink it and some of it actually goes inside and then your digestive system is like, what's this stuff? Yeah, we've been doing that a lot for how many years? And maybe we'll adapt, Maybe we'll adapt to all of these chemicals and we'll be the kings and queens of the chemical world. And we'll just live off of chemicals and it'll be great. We know that David Crosby lived off of chemicals for many years and he got to be, 81 years old. That's pretty spectacular, right? Oh, man. On that note, one more plug here for Lone Rider. Sundown, baby. Great album. Go get it. When I put baby on the end, that means I really like it. All right? All right. Just force a habit. Sorry. And also Modern Retro Radio. You got to check them out. I will put links in the description for the radio station and also my Patreon. I could use a few patrons, folks. Views are up, revenue is down. That's what's going on right now. Overnight, my view count went way up and my revenue continued to go down. It's a great world. I'm just going to keep going. And with the great people I have supporting me on Patreon, and I love all of you people, and I thank you profusely. If I didn't have you people, I don't know. It would be time to start thinking about maybe shutting the thing down. It really would, because at what point, if you can't pay the mortgage and keep the lights on, then you got to do something else with your time. And I like doing this. I also have a little podcast going called the Make America Good Again podcast. It's a podcast. It's just talking. Okay. It has nothing to do with music. So if you're going to go over there, I've already had this over there where people are asking me music stuff. And I'm like, nope. And sorry, Patreon and also Truth Social. There you go. And Truth Social, I'm only over there every so often. And I may go somewhere else at some point because it's having little or no effect on the channel as a whole. But it's kind of a safe space. I like safe spaces. People always say, I need a safe space. Well, that's my safe space. All right. Okay, folks, I have talked for way too long here. See you soon.